Great play spaces welcome all ages and encourage development of all kinds: physical, cognitive, social, and emotional throughout life. At BCI Burke, we believe in play that moves you and your community to do more. Find out how at bciburke.com.
Hey everybody, Rodney Auth here with the Park People Podcast, publisher of PRB Plus Magazine, and I am with Todd Martin, who is the city landscape architect, Mark Johnson, who is principal of Civitas, and Jenny Horne, who is the project manager at Stantec. And the three of them worked on a really cool project, redesigning Finlay Park. It was kind of a reimagination of a civic landmark, and it was a big project. And the park's been around quite a while. It's gone through various stages, and I think we're going to start with Todd. Todd, maybe you can welcome. Thank you for joining us, first of all. And second of all, why don't you take us through, my understanding of this is it was a park, and then it was maybe an industrial area, and then it was a park, and then you guys, now it's been redesigned. So there's a long history here. Is that correct? And kind of how did this come about?
That is absolutely correct. It has a long history. It dates back to the 1850s when it was Sydney Park. And at that time, it was more of this pastoral, more of this natural landscape. It was known as Taylor's Hill. And it had this hillside that swept down towards the river. But in 1901, the city sold that land to Seaboard Railroad. And they came in and they carved it out into more of this bowl-like appearance that you see today, this dramatic hillside that takes up the park. And the rail yard itself, it didn't last that long. But the site was just neglected into this wasteland for almost 100 years until Mayor Finlay comes along, and he has this vision for not only the park, but this whole district known as the Congaree Vista District. And he works with a famous Southern landscape architect by the name of Robert Marvin. And they created this bold vision that really engaged the hillside, activated the hillside, brought in this very special water feature that's still iconic today. And he took some very bold moves. And over time, the operations plan just did not hold up. We could not maintain it. The programming was not very consistent. Visibility was lacking, and the park became unsafe. It wasn't a place that you would want to spend time in. And so with that, we lost what was considered the crown jewel. So our goal was to bring that back. And so through site analysis, really studying the history, we developed community-driven goals that really shaped how we would design the site.
So was when you kind of lost the crown jewel there, was it more of a funding, monetary thing? You just couldn't keep up with the maintenance on it, which you kind of alluded to, or was it like, did it become dated and people weren't as interested in going there anymore, or was it a mix of all those things? Like how did something? Because I mean the pictures are stunning, right, of what's there, and I know we're obviously seeing what you guys did, so it's even more stunning now, but it looks like the bones were actually pretty good.
They were. It was a mix. When you stop maintaining a space, you stop activating it and programming it, people stop coming. And then when they did come back, it was a different park. It was a different park. It was a different experience, and it didn't feel safe. And so it only got worse, and it developed a reputation, and that reputation only got worse. So by the time we got to the park, really started working with this team in 2014, it was in rough shape. The fountain was, just being cut off. It stayed off for over a decade. Sight lines had disappeared. Just wasn't a place, like I said, that you would really want to spend time in.
Sure. So let's start there then. So like I understand that there's some challenges to this space, right? So you come in, you're fixing a space that was awesome, was well designed, overgrown, sight lines have disappeared. You've got what is it, an 80-foot elevation, 100-foot elevation? Is it 80? I can't remember what it was.
80 feet, yeah.
Roughly 80 feet. Right, topographies that you've got to work with, right? And so when you looked at that, you went out to your constituents and you had them start talking about what they like to see there. What did you hear, and what did the design parameters become, as we started to move into that first phase?
Sure, accessibility was huge when you had so much topography, making the park accessible. And, we wanted to make it accessible, but we also wanted to bring that experience back. The contractor in the park, he grew up playing there and would play in the waterfalls and really experience that waterfall where you could walk behind it. But none of that was really accessible. So how could we, bring that component back, really engage that hillside like Robert Marvin did, but do it with an accessible approach. So that was a big key, making the park accessible, making it more connected. There's a lot of disconnected spaces. Safety and visibility, like I said, the reputation of the park had just gotten so bad that we really had to go overboard to bring back that safety and visibility. I remember in the kickoff meeting we got Jenny and Mark back together. Mark made the statement that the buildings in the park would be these lantern-like forms that would be beacons of light. And we just went crazy with that. It snowballed into this really great collaboration that created this stunning landform that we created. I don't know if Mark or Jenny want to speak to some of that from the safety
Go ahead,
standpoint.
Jenny. Go ahead.
Well, definitely that one comment from Mark in our kickoff meeting set the tone for this immense lighting throughout the park. And it also set the tone of really architecturally how we were going to really highlight the structures and the facilities within the park to help immerse the park in light.
And so talk to me a little bit more specifically about the lighting, because I'm kind of looking at some pictures here of it, and I'm trying to pick out because there's a lot of open space where there's natural lighting, but are you talking about lighting elements that you've incorporated in some of the structures? Is that what you're really talking about, Jenny?
Yeah, so with our stage area, because of the idea of the lantern, we were able to collaborate with the team members to find a solution how to integrate lighting into the structures themselves to help form that kind of beam of light or that beacon of light throughout the park. So the stage and our spray play, and also probably one of the most important features in the park for us has been the what we called the nest during the design, but it was a way for us to clad and really bring a modern approach to what was a hillside that was formed with a brick or a structure called Laufenstein wall system. So we wanted to bring new life into that, and we were able to integrate the lighting into that feature itself.
Okay. And so that played a couple of roles, I'm understanding. Obviously, aesthetically, it was cool. Obviously, it went with the core, this beam of light concept. But I'm sure safety was huge, right? Like lighting and safety are hand in hand. So it sounds like it worked on several levels. Is that correct?
Yes, it did. It safety, going back to the beacon concept that Mark introduced at our kickoff meeting, it solved a lot of the safety and concerns that maybe we all had in making sure that we put more eyes and visibility back on the park itself.
And in practice, now that it's open and running, has that worked out the way you had hoped?
I believe it has, but I would let Todd speak to that as well.
Absolutely. We hear all the time about, how you experience the park and you're there in the daytime, but at night it's just a different experience. And it feels different. And people, crave that, come back and bring their families. It's been really special. And it's very cohesive too.
Yeah, and on the safety component, other than lighting, what other strategies did you employ? Or was that the primary one? Like, was that enough to take the ball over the line, or no?
I think
go ahead.
I think that's a good place for me to jump in. Robert Marvin, the original designer, was a visionary guy. He was widely admired and loved, but he was extremely associated and attached to the environment and the health of the environment. For example, his own office was built on stilts over a swamp. And like, who would do that? And right, it's like, why? But he wanted to be in contact with nature in the most authentic way. And Yeah, right. And he brought a lot of his own theory to the design of this park originally, and it was one of the most adventurous designs I've ever seen. And it took the hillside and makes the activity center the hill itself, and that's it's not intuitive for most designers. And he used that motion up and down the hill of people and water and plants up and down the hill as the activator for the park. But of course, one of the things about parks is that culture changes. People's expectations change. How we communicate and connect with each other changes. I mean, there's basic human emotions, right? We all want a nice, shady place to sit. We all want something to look at, and so on and so forth. Those are just, sort of organic experiences that we all desire. We all love sitting on a high place overlooking something. It makes us feel safe. But we brought some theory to this. One theory is the theory of triangulation, which is that if you're in one place in the park, you should be able to look not so far and see other people doing something else within your eyesight. And then if you look over here, you could see it again. If you look up the hill, you might see people. You look down the hill, you might see people. So you create this triangular visual connectivity that tends to make you feel safe, but it also tends to encourage you to walk. To, what's that over there? I'll go over that must be okay because there are people over there and they're laughing. And so it puts motion into a park in a way. We have this phrase we use that the parks that we work on need no instructions. You just go there and you sort of naturally know what to do. Now it can be programmed, it can be heavily programmed with music and events and festivals, but it's about the day-to-day experience. Another big theory has to do with light, and the theory behind that is we shouldn't be lighting outdoor space to make the pavements bright. We should be lighting it so that you feel like when you walk into a really beautiful living room, you feel the room is lit. If you walk into a dining room, you feel the table is lit, right? And maybe the perimeter is darker. But a living room is a lighted space where you feel relaxed and comfortable. So the idea behind the lantern and making the buildings bright is to put that light at the edges of the space so you feel safe moving toward the light.
Interesting. I haven't heard the triangulation method before, the concept before. It's an interesting concept. I see how it works. Was the original design, were there impediments to that thought because of the way plans were placed or whatever, or was the original maybe fine and just got overgrown and that ruined the space?
Well, there's there's a sort of cascade of terraces down from Laurel Street,
Yeah.
and they didn't meet the triangulation test. You would come to a sort of a landing pad and you could look over the park, but then you would have to go around to the side to get to the next landing pad, and you couldn't see what was going on in the next spot. So
Gotcha.
the first time I came, there were some guys hanging out in each of those spaces, and you couldn't tell if they were sketchy or, is it okay if I'm here?
Yeah.
And so that was something that probably was perfectly rational and reasonable when Robert designed the original park, but our society's moved on to where we have new kinds of issues.
Sure.
And so that needed to be addressed. But basically the park was well triangulated already. There were some barriers. The core of the park was a very, very large lake, and you had to go around the lake, and it became the lake, which you would think is the attractor, was actually in many ways a barrier that divided the fountain and the hill from the play areas in the lawn.
Okay. So how did you solve some of those issues then? I understand the concept that you were trying to execute, right? And now there's some areas that are challenging. How did you guys work through those challenges? Like what changes did you make, or interventions did you introduce?
Well, I think Todd gets the credit for that. I'm going to let him speak, but the precursor to that, Jenny and I actually worked on this park with Todd twice. And we initially did a master plan with the public, and it was pretty expensive. And so it sat for a while, and then we were able to come back a few years later and revisit it. In that interim time, Todd had been noodling on the design in his spare time and had come up with exactly the answers to the question you just asked about how to open the park up.
Okay.
Well, it was organic. I learned so much just going through the process in 14 with this team. And I knew we had something special that was brewing. And so we just kept working on it. I was working with the community, those goals that we developed in 2014, they remain the same, so we kept testing those and working through design solutions. I'll say one key feature that really changed the design and really helped, the design was the old stage was projecting noise into the adjacent neighborhoods. So we had to flip it. And that sounds easy, but by flipping it, we had to fill in about half the pond. You now have a stage that you have this hillside as a backdrop. And how are you going to get, events set up? So my design actually had more of this organic central green. And when we got the team back together, we simplified that. We made it this oval, which was great because you come in right off of Taylor, you circulate in, you set up for events, and you circulate out. And it works perfect. We've had so many concerts out there already. We have concerts every Friday night. We've had multiple day concerts. It's worked really, really great. And so that set up the oval, which is the central green in the center of the park. We call this our event space.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, another favorite move that we did was we spin off with these strolling gardens. And you create these organic loops that start to develop this rhythm throughout the park. And it connects all these spaces, this triangulation. It connects it in a very special way as you experience the park. So I know that was a really key move also. We talked a little bit about how we wanted to create an experience, and make it accessible, but not with just conventional ramps down a hillside. Make it part of that hillside, bring back some of what Robert Marvin had envisioned there.
Mm-hmm. So how did you do that with, how did that flow work, right? So if you're not using ramps, are you using, switchbacks? Are you using, what's the solution there? Because, I'm not a good designer, so I don't see a lot of options.
Sure. Well, we wanted to minimize slopes that were steeper than 5%, because when you do that, you create ramps that need handrails, and it just doesn't have that same experience. So we tried to create a lot of gentle slopes throughout the park. Mm-hmm. One key move, though, was in the grotto. It was this pinch point that we had no choice, but we needed a bridge. Mm-hmm. And so we built this cantilevered bridge that's 9 foot wide, that takes you over the grotto, behind the dramatic waterfall, this 40-foot waterfall. It takes you behind the waterfall. You soak in skyline views from the city, and then you travel over the rapids. And the material that we used for that is a see-through steel grate, so you can actually see under you as you walk, which also provided a really nice experience as well.
Yeah, I know there's a picture of that in the story that you guys published in the June issue. And it's taken from a slightly different angle, but it's a dramatic piece, visually. Yeah. Okay. Talk to me a little bit. I want to back up one thing a little bit. You said strolling gardens, which I'm assuming are, vegetative spaces that people are walking through is what you mean by that, I'm assuming. Are the gardens, how many are there? And, are they each designed differently? How's that work?
I'll speak a little bit to this. Some of this was a lot of Civitas developing these strolling gardens, so I'd love to hear Mark talk about it too. But you create these different garden rooms. And one thing we did, we programmed them with art. And we actually developed a competition where we worked with a nonprofit here that helps us bring in art to the park. And it was a nationwide competition. We had over 64 submissions, and we had a jury that selected the top 8, and they'll be rotated every 2 years.
And is this like sculptural art, or is it a wide variety, or is it other types of art?
Mid-sized sculptures.
Mid-sized sculptures, okay.
And so they're placed throughout this garden, and we will refresh that in 2 years with new art through a new competition. So that was a really nice move as well.
And do the gardens have themes like, some people do Shakespeare gardens where it's only plants that were in Shakespeare. Like, do they have anything like that, or are they just?
We were very careful to use native plant material.
Uh-huh.
Outside the hedge that defines the space, because by giving it this clean edge, we can get more wild. Like, we love to create these very wild spaces as landscape architects. And that contrast, it sets it up with this clean edge. And then when you get into the gardens, it's very organic and loose. But outside the hedge and the turf grass, everything's native.
Okay.
Very native landscape.
Okay. Sounds
And
wonderful.
you have different garden rooms. You have a stream that anchors it. It's a really nice space.
Yeah.
Shade, some existing trees, some new trees.
And are you finding it being used pretty often? People are.
Oh, absolutely. But see, not only do you have these rooms that it created this framework as you move through the park. You're on these very organic paths that connect all the different spaces. Set it up great.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moves.
Yeah. Interesting. Mark, do you have anything to add on that front?
Well, the idea behind that is to combine that sensory experience that we get when we're outdoors with our natural curiosity. And then when you put those two things together with the different, the organic paths, the loops, as Todd says, loops are great because you walk around, basically you walk in a circle. And yet, because they're interconnected, you have lots of choices, and people love choices. So your curiosity, you'll see one of these sculptures and you move, just naturally move towards that. And it's taking that triangulation concept and making it personal, that it's just about you in a space. And you can, if it's blooming, there's fragrance, there's color, and it'll change through the seasons and the year and so on. It's not so much different than going to any garden and exploring a garden that's got a wide range of things going on in terms of plants and flowers and smells, and just giving that to the public. Most gardens are private. So to have a real garden space, and it raises a little bit of a maintenance challenge for Todd's team because gardens require gardening. That's right. And most parks departments aren't about gardening, but it's worth doing. And it's really impressive to see the city's commitment to maintaining it so beautifully.
So Todd, does your team do that, or do you contract that out with a local vendor of some sort to maintain those gardens? The town that I grew up in did both models, right? And ended up there was a local nursery that just did a much better job than our. To Mark's point, our staff was pretty good with turf, but a variety of flowers and whatever didn't work as well. And the bringing in the team, the external team, first of all, was way easier. How do you guys handle it?
It's a hybrid approach. We
Hybrid?
have a very, very big operational team out there. We have park rangers that also will help with maintenance. And
Oh, really?
Some of the park rangers that we hired have a good horticulture background that have helped us a lot. But we do contract actually with the landscape contractor that built the park, that landscaped the park. It was bid out and they actually won it, and they help us to maintain these very maintenance intensive areas.
Not necessarily on topic, but just a curiosity question for me. We have seen some departments use a volunteer model where they've got a gardening club, or they've got people in town that are very, very, it's their passion, right? Have you ever experimented with that model, or know anybody who's done? We've heard good and bad because it's it's volunteers, so you don't have as much control sometimes.
On a community park level, we do. We have a great park where you have it's a tiny little park, but it's operated really nicely, where you have these brick piers, and between each pier is this garden bed. And then one person in the community basically owns that bed and takes care of it.
Okay. So true community garden. Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right. But it's more than like, you see like a community garden with vegetables. It's like perennials. This is beautiful garden, but it's maintained by, and it's cohesive, but it's maintained by an individual homeowner.
Right.
So you have that. At Finlay, we didn't really want to take that chance.
Sure. Right.
Especially on that scale.
Right.
So we didn't go about it that way there.
Right. So I know that a big central component of this entire discussion for you was designing a park that was very intuitive, right, for the user. You've talked about triangulation, you've talked about the strolling gardens and the loops and the lighting and everything, safe spaces. What other elements of the park lend itself to being, quote unquote, intuitive? Is there any other aspects of it that we should discuss?
Jenny, you want to know the water features? Because that's as memory, as we talked about in the article, water as memory, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, I would say that, one area that we did touch during the design very minimally, but that it added a lot of value to the reimagining of Finlay was the Cascades and that grotto area. And I think Mark and Todd mentioned earlier that we had, we basically reduced the size of the previous pond a lot to make room for the oval and the stage. But in doing that, we were able to really evaluate and design a better pond feature for the city that would handle not just being able to get closer to it, but get closer to it in a safety component. And it also helps, the reduction of that size also helps with a lot of the maintenance that the city had previously. So creating kind of these littoral shelves to help soften the edges and make them safe for all the users that visit Finlay Park. The Cascades, I would say that when the team was evaluating that and how we wanted to really bring the connectivity through the grotto and the Cascades and then over the pond feature and the Cascade feature, was looking at different ways to move the water through and into the grotto, and then how the grotto then spilled over our weir into the pond. All of those elements really worked well together, and they're so centrally tied to each other.
Let's talk, if we can, for 1 second, a little bit about, your waterfall feature and your fountain, right? Take me through the water flow. So it starts at the fountain, right? And it goes across a really cool waterfall that people can actually walk under. It looks like there's actually a sidewalk, basically, or a trail underneath it. And where does it go from there? My pictures, I don't have a picture of where it goes, but how does the water get back to the fountain? Or is it coming from the city water system? How's that working?
So it starts, if I kind of work from the top down, it starts at the iconic spiral. So the iconic spiral is, let's just say, the starting point, and that pools at the very top, and it has two routes basically that it will flow. It can flow down the Cascades, or it flows over the waterfall, the 40-foot waterfall. So you have 2 points of travel for the water, if you will.
Yeah,
and so if you follow it over the waterfall, it drops down into the grotto, and then it finds its way over the weir and down into the pond. And then ultimately it goes through our strolling gardens. So it also has interaction through those gardens down to our kind of down toward the bioswale pond that we have. And then it's pumped back, and then it's all a recycle water system. So,
wow, that's an amazing. I mean, the footprint on that is huge. I'm struggling to get my mind kind of around it. It's and it's beautiful, of course, right? So the fountain itself and what you're calling the Cascades and the fountain are two different things, right? You're calling the Cascades the little natural waterfall off of the one edge. Is that what you're calling the Cascade?
Yes, that is correct.
And the fountain what's the name? Is the fountain have a name, or that's the original design, right?
We call it iconic spiral.
Iconic spiral. Okay, gotcha.
Todd, does the city have a different name from the spiral?
We just call it the Finlay Fountain.
Yeah.
The Finlay Fountain. Yeah. It's an amazing piece of work. Okay, so I know we're getting a little over time here, so we'll start to wrap it up. But you guys have done a wonderful job, and obviously people should read the story in our June issue. Is there anything that we should have talked about that we didn't? We kind of touched on the high points. I'm concerned that maybe we forgot something. Is there anything that we forgot to talk about?
Did you want to mention the playground a bit?
Well, that's not a bad idea. Yep.
Yeah. So we have a new destination playground. Robert Marvin actually created one of the first vertical playgrounds. And so we wanted to bring that back, but on a very large scale. So it's destination, and we wanted to bring families back into the park and create this really great feature for them. And so we had this really blank hillside adjacent to our greenway that we could do that. And, you know, even the architecture for that was developed around this whole lantern nest-like look. And we worked with a company to create this playground that's unstructured in play. So there's just so many multiple ways that you can play on the playground. Kids can use their creativity to engage this playground and engage the hillside.
Okay.
And so it's also accessible. So you have this playground built into the hillside, and it's accessible on 3 levels, from the bottom and through the switchback, from the bottom, the mid layer, and then the top layer. And you have this central tower that rises up and connects the different layers. It's full of climbing. You got multiple slides. We got concrete slides. We got shade. It's built on this south exposing slope. So we wanted to create shade to protect the slides so it wouldn't become so hot, especially here in Columbia.
Sure.
Probably something we added very late was this turf hillside that the community has just loved. I mean, they have went crazy over this hillside. We can't keep adults off of it. It's all over social media.
What are they? What's
What's
the attraction? Are they sliding down a cardboard box? I mean, what do they do?
Exactly.
Basically.
We have a
Okay.
recycling bin right next to the bottom, just full
Okay.
of cardboard boxes, and they just come out there and they slide all day long and just love it. And that's all it is to
You
it. It's
know,
just a big hill.
That
It's like
is
Williamsport all over again.
that is something we love about what we're able to do, is watching when, you know, we think so hard about design and we try to imagine how people are going to use it, what they're going to do. And there's always somebody that shows up and does something better. You know, the cardboard boxes are an example. We did a hill in a grass hill in a park in Canada, and it's 10 meters high, so pretty high. And you know what people do on that? They rollerblade down this hill in the grass. And
Canadians are weird though, so let's be honest.
it's like, what? And it's too steep to walk up, so they take their blades off and walk up in their bare feet, and then they do it again, and they go for distance. It's just, and
See,
so
those
people in
brothers.
you know, what's more wonderful than a cardboard box and people having fun?
Yeah. Well, Canadians and rollerblades and ice skates kind of go hand in hand, so I guess that makes
That's true.
sense.
That's true, but they will show up and do crazy stuff.
They do. I'm in Idaho, so we're right across the border, and we get a lot of interaction with Canadians. Awesome people, and but man, adventurous is all get out. Like, I don't think they get credit for how adventurous they are.
Well, I
Oh,
just
cool.
have to salute Todd and the city here for their leadership and commitment to making this happen. This is a community project, and Todd was the center of that. And it's, you know, I'm just honored to be part of it.
Oh, cool. I mean,
I
it's
say all the time,
an amazing
collaboration.
project.
And collaboration is what made it special.
Yeah.
Don't let Mark fool you. Collaboration is what truly made this park special.
Well, nothing gets
A
done
good
in a
team.
vacuum, right? Nothing gets done in a vacuum. Everything has to, you know, if without collaboration, nothing gets done, especially in this space, right? Yeah. Well, congratulations to all of you guys. I appreciate your help. Is there anything else before we sign off that we should add?
Nope.
Nope. We made it
Thanks
to the
to
end.
you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you guys have a great week, and we'll let you know when this is up and live. It should be here shortly, and we'll go from there.
Thanks a lot,
All right.
Rod.